This is the Australia Day Showdown. How do we celebrate Australia?
We pull the blinds, strip ourselves naked.
Are we defined by our national pastime?
Drink, drink, more beer, drink, 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 drink.
Or by what we do 9 to 5?
We've got to go to work every day to put food on the table.
And what of the generation to follow?
So tired of being out clubbing all night.
How does the world see us?
The drunkest people in all of Asia.
And just how well do we take a joke?
How dare you say that about this beautiful country?
Tonight, we answer these questions and more in the Australia Day Showdown. Here's your host, Charlie Pickering.
Thank you all so much. Good evening and welcome to the Great Australia Day Showdown. To once and for all answer the question, can you ever be too Australian? It's a dispute that's raged through the ages, or at least since last Thursday when we came up with it. Let's consider for a moment what it actually means to be Australian. Because as a nation, we literally have no idea. We don't really know a lot about ourselves. We don't have a Declaration of Independence or a Bill of Rights, but maybe we don't need them. We don't need a Bill of Rights to tell us our most fundamental right as Australians, that if a public holiday falls on a weekend, then we sure as shit better get the Monday off. Because we are a people of contradictions. We're incredibly proud of our opera house, but when was the last time any of us ducked out to see a bit of opera? Most of us wouldn't know who our first Prime Minister was if it hadn't been for a TV commercial. But if I asked you whose boss was not happy that she forgot to book an ad in the Yellow Pages, or what's the name of Rhonda's Balinese love interest, you'd answer Jan and Katut without even thinking. We celebrate the little people, because the only thing stronger than our sense of patriotism is our tall poppy syndrome. You see, every country needs heroes. Americans have Washington and Lincoln, the Brits have Lord Nelson and Churchill, but the only heroes we can all agree on are Far Lap, Australia 2 and Black Caviar. Two of our heroes are horses and the other one is a boat. And even the boat was a bit up itself, you know, oh, look at my fancy keel, you wanker. So tonight, this specially selected lineup of perfectly sized poppies will do their best to educate and entertain you without doing such a good job of it that you grow to hate them and want them to die. Here to reckon that you can never be too Australian, we have Meshel Laurie, Akmal Saleh and Mooney. And here to reckon that you can be too Australian, it's Kitty Flanagan, Tom Gleeson and Denise Scott. Those are the teams, and now here are the rules of tonight's showdown. Over to you, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie. You've been divided into two teams. That's original. One team believes you can never be too Australian. The other believes you can. We've separated the teams to avoid violence and because one team has lice. Each team member gets to speak for 4 minutes on why they believe what they believe and then must answer a series of questions on why they believe it. No name calling, no running with scissors, and don't swim immediately after eating. They're not rules, just good advice. At the end, the winner will be determined using rules that I make up as we go along. Then it's all back to my place for a barbecue, except for the team with lice. Back to you, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie. The first person to tell us that you can never be too Australian is so Australian herself that not only did she shave her hair off for charity, but she couldn't be asked growing it back. Give it up for Meshel Laurie!
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you. Thank you, Australia. Thank you, Australia. God, I love you. How could you ever be to us? You could never be to us. How good are we? How good are we? Except at Olympics. But who cares? But we have heaps of mad skills. You know why? Because we are the world's greatest mongrels. So it's like we're mutants, you know, and we have special powers. We can tattoo our bodies with symbols we don't understand. Special power. We can spend a fortune on an outfit for the races, only to crawl home on our hands and knees with no shoes, no underpants and no dignity. Screaming at passing taxis and picking old kebab out of our hair. Special powers. At a moment's notice, we can become the drunkest people in all of Asia. We have a female Prime Minister who was born in Wales. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah, although I did see a man on the news the other night. He said he wouldn't be voting for Julia next time because he was worried about having a menopausal Prime Minister. Oh. And to that man I say, sir, I wish you'd met my mother during menopause, because she got shit done. My favourite Australians are New Zealanders. Yeah, there you are. Where else would you be? Good on you. I love the stuff you make up when you get here to give us a laugh. It's so sweet of you. Like chili buns and jandals. I love that. And Paul Henry. I love that. We know it's not real, but it's hilarious. Sure, I grew here. Perhaps you flew here. But the point is that we, all of us, owe everything we have to one great nation. China. Thank you, China. Oh, God. I got this top for $8. Like, you couldn't make it here for that. How good are they? Thank you so much, China. And we were talking about tattoos before. I mean, if you're not going tribal, you're going Chinese. Unless you're an idiot. So what I'm asking you to do is have a look now. Just have a look around this theatre at the beautifully diverse face of Australia. Hey, let's start with Charlie Pickering. What a beautiful little Aussie battler. He's got a smile like Jackman, a wit like Hogues, and hair a little bit like Maggie Tabra. You can never be too Australian. Be you bogan, bevan or hipster. Be you surfy, westy, feral, festy. Be you Nicole. Or what's her name? Her sister. Aren't they wonderful? And you can never build too many big things. Build a fish or some big pink galahs. Build a bloody big sheep with a door up its arse so the rover can see it from Mars. Build a prawn, build a beer, build an oyster, build a croc with a wide open gob. You can never be too Australian, but with a Southern Cross tat, you're a knob. If you think that I'm too Australian, then I'll say you're a bloody disgrace. It's like calling our Phar Lap a Kiwi or saying you prefer Warnie's new face. It's like saying you don't love Beck and Leighton or that Lara Bingle doesn't really have a job. You can never be too Australian, but with a Southern Cross tat, you are a knob. From my dad, with his taxi, and Chardonnay, his dog. That's really its name. To my sweet and sour man, Jimmy Wong. You can never be too Australian, unless, of course, these bastards prove me wrong. Thank you, Australia.
Fascinating stuff, Meshel, but I'll put it over to the You Can Be Too Australian team. Do you have any questions for Meshel on her presentation so far?
Yeah, I saw there that your father's a cab driver.
Yes.
Has he ever taken you the quick way home?
Never. And he's never used an indicator.
Okay.
And Meshel, you also spoke about, like, the big prawn, the big... surely you'd agree that the big poo that was built in New South Wales is too Australian?
No, in Kiama... I think you owe the good people of Kiama an apology, Denise Scott. They'd be mortified to hear that. They worked hours on that big poo.
The big poo would have been more appropriate at Bondi.
Yes.
The big poo means that we've got space to have a big poo. I mean, there's people in those little beds in Tokyo, they'd love a big poo.
They can't afford it.
Yes, the poor Japanese.
I think we've officially wandered off track enough. Meshel Laurie, thank you very much.
Thank you, Carly.
We're going to take a quick break right now, and up next, Kitty Flanagan. Don't go anywhere.
My fellow Australians, happy Australia Day. Thank you for helping me fight the recent outbreak of the most un-Australian condition known to man, lamnesia. You took the National Lamnesia Test, and like an usher at the Logies, you sorted the true Aussie icons from the ones kidding themselves. In the face of national calamity, you kept calm and carried on munching lamb. Give yourself a pat in the back, or on the gut if you're still digesting a lamb barbie. In between tonight's showdown shenanigans, I'll be sharing the findings from my test. No doubt you're hanging out for the results like a backpacker fresh home from Bangkok. If you haven't taken it, get over to lamnesia.com.au. Chop, chop. You know it makes sense? I'm Sam Kekovich.
Welcome back to the Australia Day Showdown, sorting out once and for all if you can ever be too Australian. Now, for years, Kitty Flanagan has been making people laugh, so it would be pretty disappointing if she decided to stop now. Please welcome a woman who stole the nation's heart, Michael Bolton's hair and my wallet, arguing that you can be too Australian, Kitty Flanagan!
All right, let's back it off. Let's remember, Australians don't like too much of anything. We find too much of anything annoying. If you're too clever, you're annoying. If you're too good looking, you're annoying. If you're too successful, you're really annoying. Ergo, it's actually un-Australian to be too Australian. Thank you. Is that not enough? It's not enough? Oh, crap, all right. OK, I'll just wing the rest. Yeah, look, being Australian's fine. You know, a bit of g'day, that's all right. But you don't need to go too far. You don't need to do the g'day, thumbs up, wink combo. You know? That's when you become a caricature. That's when people start going, oh, I think he's got Reddies, which is that specific Australian strain of Tourette's. Yeah, I've had Reddies all my life. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, she's all good, mate. Yeah. If you want an example of something that went too Australian, if you remember Melissa George a while back, and, you know, I think it was called Angel Gate, Melissa George from Home and Away, and she came out and she said she didn't want to talk about Home and Away. And I think, well, that's fair enough. None of us really want to talk about Home and Away. But then she went further and she said she didn't need credibility from Australia anymore. She would rather be eating a croissant in Paris and walking a French bulldog in New York. A typical Australian reaction would be to go, shut up, you're up yourself. Ooh, with your such a serious actor face now. Yeah. She used to do soap opera acting, that was this. Now she's serious because she's doing this. Yeah, see, that's a standard Australian reaction, just to say you're a wanker and move on. But that's not what happened. The reaction was apoplectic. People going, oh, my God, how dare you say that about this beautiful country? If you don't like it, Melissa George, you can rack off, you can take your croissant-munching French bulldog and shove it up your Australian arse. Off, we're full. Too much. Too much. Australian. That's when it goes too far. That's when patriotism becomes jingoism. Not just jingoism, dangerous jingoism. You know, like dingoism. So let's just all calm down before a baby gets eaten. You know, I just think I blame TV producers. You know, they always have to portray us as overly Australian. Like when they filmed Survivor in Australia and they came and they dumped a load of Americans in the outback, then they wheeled in some Akuba wearing Aussie larrikin to teach them about bush tucker. He was going to teach them about what Aussies eat when they're camping. It's like, well, where's the 2-minute noodles and the cask of fruity Lexia? You know? Instead he's banging on about bush tucker. I don't think anyone. No one here eats bush tucker. Oh, yeah, I'm always down at Coles going, excuse me, in which aisle would I find the bush tucker? Oh, you've moved it to the deli cabinet. How fantastic. It's going to be very fresh bush tucker. Excellent. No, it's not right. You know what, most Australians, like bush tucker, that's just something you do if you didn't have a wax before you put your bikini on. Just have a bit of a bush tucker. Most Australians are ordinary, regular people, but that's not what you'll see if you go and see Australian films. Oh, in Australian films, we're all larger-than-life characters, and we all come from kooky coastal towns like Porpoise Spit or Dunny Junction or Mount My Wife. Hey! You know, and we're all a bit simple. Apparently, we say stuff like Ridgy Didge and Bugger Me Dead and Struth and Crocky. That Sheila could use a bit of a bush tucker, couldn't she? I just think being too Australian is actually ruining the film industry. you know, I don't want to sound up myself, but I wrote a brilliant film script. It was a sad but touching story of a boy who was bullied because he was smaller than everybody else at school, and it was called Bullied Schmullied. And the Australian Film Finance Corporation told me the film wasn't Aussie enough. Yeah. The characters needed to be more Aussie, the dialogue needed to be more Aussie, I had to cast an Aussie icon. So yeah, I made all their changes. I did. And you know what the result was? Yet another Australian film that's now too Australian that no one will ever go and see. Take a look.
He was bullied. He was lonely. He smelled funny and had teeny tiny eyes. He was Prawn Boy. A coming-of-age story that would touch your heart.
Prawn Boy! Don't have the water too hot, mate. You'll flame and cook yourself.
Starring Flanagan in a wig as Prawn Boy's mother. And introducing Prawny H. Johnson as Prawn Boy. Prawn Boy.
So it actually still upsets me to watch that, and it's even more upsetting knowing that when we take it to the US, we're going to have to rebrand the whole thing as Shrimp Boy. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
My question is about Prawn Boy. I guess if anything, I think it raises more questions than it answers. Can I just walk through it? You are Prawn Boy's birth mother, is that? That's right. So am I to assume that the father was a Moreton Bay bug that skipped town? Perhaps a crayfish in a band? Maybe a quick fling with a yabby before you put it in the pot? What's the how did Prawn Boy happen?
Charlie, I think, you know, we've all done things we're not proud of before we actually made it in show business, and, you know, if I made a few prawn films in my time, then I can't be held responsible, so...
Would you please thank Kitty Flanagan? Akmal Saleh is up next. We'll see you in a bit. Don't go anywhere.
I just thought I'd interrupt this showdown to say well done to the 26% of Australians who knew that Princess Mary of Denmark is fair dinkum Aussie. Of course she is. She comes from Tassie, she rides a horse, and she latches onto a Scandinavian backpacker in a Harborside nightclub like a funnel web on a 2-year-old's finger. Sure, she speaks with a plum in her mouth. That's just Princess Bloody Mary's way of supporting our stone fruit farmers. Let's hope this Australia Day she keeps showing her true blue colours and speaks with a chop in the mouth instead. Like we all should. You know it makes sense. I'm Sam Kikovich.
Here to tell us why you can never be too Australian is Akmal Saleh. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're going, oh, yeah, token ethnic. Well, have you seen SBS? There's nothing but token ethnics over there. But this man is Australia's best-loved entertainer of Egyptian heritage. Well, at least he was until Waleed Ali came along. Am I right, Waleed? I mean, how nice is
eyelashes.
Oh, and the eyes.
I love him.
I wish Waleed was here.
Yeah.
But anyway, please welcome a brilliant comedian, successful actor, and president of the I Hate Waleed Ali Club, Akmal Saleh.
Recently, I was asking a friend of mine, a very Aussie friend of mine, on his thoughts on the war in Syria, the civil war. And I'm not making this up. His reply was, Syria, yeah, I missed that, mate, because I think it was on at the same time as MasterChef. That's beautiful, isn't it? That's Australia. That's the reason why we haven't had a civil war in this country. Because of that kind of thinking. The only time we came close to a civil war was the Cronulla riots a few years ago. Remember that? How piss weak was that compared to other, like, riots and civil wars? And everyone was scared. It was the Lebanese versus the Aussies, and people were frightened, and people were writing in the papers, oh, we can't stop this. There's going to be revenge attacks after revenge attacks. We're on the brink of civil war. Bullshit. Didn't happen. The whole thing died right down very quickly, almost suddenly. Do you remember what happened? Cricket started. Remember that? Do you remember? Yeah. That's why we are the most peaceful people on earth because of this. There's a lot of countries at war at the moment in our world, troubled world, and we got the UN. We just became a member of the UN, the United Nations, and they have done nothing. They've done nothing. I think, you know, get rid of the UN. If you want world peace, what about the United Australia pub crawl? Send all the countries at war to the biggest pub crawl in the world. I guarantee you, at the end of the night, you'll have Palestinians hugging Israelis going, oh, love you. You know, if you are serious about world peace, if you really want world peace, then look no further than the real Aussies, the real original Australians, the Aborigines. They're the only people in history ever to invent a weapon that, when launched, comes straight back at you. What a great deterrent against war. Imagine if we all designed our weapons like that. Imagine that. You would think twice about attacking another country. Like, we've just launched a missile. Oh, shit, it's coming back! Back! You know, let's not do that again. You know, that's the thing. That's the thing. No, we don't need to be less Australian. We need to be more Australian. More Australian, because that's a good thing. And on Australia Day, every year, I just do that little bit extra. I make that little bit extra effort to be more Aussie. This year, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to drink a carton of VB, whole carton. When I get really pissed, when I go to the tattoo shop, I'm going to get the Southern Cross tattooed here and mob on the back of it, back of my head. I'm going to go and drink another carton of beer and go to the beach. I won't use sunscreen because I don't need it. Won't use it. But instead, because it's Australia Day, I'll use Vegemite. That's right, I used to be white. No, I'm going to use Vegemite, and then I'm going to swim between the flags, but only if they're Aussie flags. None of that walk shit. I'm going to drink another 7 cases of VB just because it's Australia. I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for me country. I'm going to drink for Australia Day. Drink, more beer. Drink for Australia. Drink, then drive home. I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to fang it. I'm going to drive fast because I'm pissed. And I figure the quicker I'm off the road, the better. For everyone. I'm going to roll out of my car. I'm going to have a big spew under the shade of a coolabah tree. And then I'm going to collapse and say, what a top Australia Day that was. Because that's Australia. But you know what? That's not me. I wouldn't hang around with those guys anyway. They sound terrible. I'm very cultured and intelligent, and I read. That's the thing. You can never define what being an Aussie is, because we still don't know. We don't know what being an Aussie is. It's a work in progress. We're only 200 plus years. That's nothing. We're young and vibrant, and you can never be too Aussie because you cannot define what Aussie is, you see? And this question tonight, this debate tonight, the question is, can you be too Aussie? Well, no, you can't. Logically, you can't, because you cannot be too anything that you cannot define. Happy Australia Day, everyone!
I think the UN Security Council Australia-sponsored pub crawl could work if we use the same security that we have on our pubs. If we've got a Samoan guy just saying, no, you can't go to war, not in those shoes.
That's right. I think, and the Israelis won't get in because they all wear sandals.
There is a thing, I've always had this belief that world peace, it's nothing to do with Australia, but who cares? But no, that world peace, if we sent soldiers to war in stilettos, I think war would stop. You can't walk in them, you can't do anything. It would end in world peace. So I say introduce stilettos, which has nothing to do with the topic, but what a thought.
I think that's... yeah, absolutely. Seriously, when you take someone who's been wearing stilettos hostage, you just go, do what you like, nothing's worse than these.
Yeah.
They are murder.
And also, quite often the battleground gets very tarnished by all the warfare, and the stilettos would aerate the lawn.
If only this showdown was about stilettos, wouldn't it be awesome?
I tell you what, warfare wouldn't end in bloodshed because soldiers' calves would look so good. I know how warfare would end.
I think it's definitely time for a break. Would you please thank Akmal Saleh? We are halfway through the showdown. Up next is Gleeson.
Yep, There's nothing more Australian than a pub crawl, except maybe calling it Redhead Bluey. And congratulations to the 68% of Australians who knew it. It's called irony. We've got no idea what it means, but we know it works. But some people take it too far. A Hessian-haired feral once served me a watercress salad and called it food. That's not irony, it's iron deficiency. So if you're not sharing an Australia Day rack of lamb with a tall bloke called Shorty, a fat bloke called Skinny, and a Chinese bloke called Patrick, you're the exact opposite of Australian, and are probably suffering from amnesia. You don't make sense because it doesn't. I'm Sam Kekovich.
Our next guest is one of the Aussiest guys that I know. Despite the fact that genetics, medical science and Charles Darwin would all agree that he probably should have died out in Australia years ago, to tell us how you can be too Australian, Tom Gleeson.
Of course you can be too Australian. And you have to be careful too, because if you're too Australian, no one understands what you're saying. Look at the expression, how are you going? How are you going? The further north you go, the less syllables people use to say it. Like in Melbourne, it's like, how are you going? In Sydney, it's like, how are you going? You get up to Brisbane, it's like, how you going? You get to Townsville, it's like, how you going? You get like, right up Cape York, it's like, my point is, you've got to be careful. If you're too Australian, you turn into a Queenslander. And also, very simply, you can be too Australian in the bedroom. Oh, yeah, no, come. Aussie, root, Aussie, root. Too Australian. You can also be too Australian in the workplace. You can. Look at Mike Hussey. Mike Hussey, Australian cricketer. He retired because of his family. And everyone went, oh, isn't that lovely? Look at him, what a lovely bloke. He retired because of his family. The rest of us, we can't retire because of our family. We've got to go to work every day to put food on the table. And he's like, oh, I've got to retire. You never hear a plumber going, you know what, I just want to go out on top because I've lost the passion. I've lost the passion for unblocking toilets. Mike Hussey, no one said you were supposed to enjoy it. Get out there and score some runs, you lazy bastard. Too Australian. You've got to be careful not to be too Australian when you go overseas. I went to Ireland. I fit in Ireland. I do. I got red hair, fair skin. Everyone thinks I'm Irish. They must, because they keep asking me for directions. But then I open my mouth and they hear my accent and they know that they've made a big mistake, but I don't care. I just persevere. Yeah, you go left, right, left, over the bridge, past the castle, then you're in Summer Bay, you flaming mongrel. I love it. Because I look like I'm Irish. Well, I look a bit different because in my eyes I've got hope. When you go overseas, there's nothing more annoying than when you hear the Australian accent out of context. It just sounds grotesque. You know, I was in a bar in New York and over my shoulder I heard this, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh. And I looked behind me and sure enough on the news it was Julie Gillard. It was embarrassing, you know. But I'd like to finish up by showing you the flag. Have a look at this. Even our forefathers protected us from not being too Australian. They made sure that the flag wasn't too Australian. 1/4 of it is British, right there. The bottom half is New Zealand's. So there's only just that little quarter there because I was worried that the whole flag might get a bit too Australian. But don't get a false sense of security. You probably look at that and you think, oh, yeah, I can't get too Australian with that. Well, you can. See, because you hold it above your head like that, that's fine. OK? That's OK. Down here, as a Kate, too Australian. Too Australian. You hold it up here, you're Sally Pearson at the Olympics. Yes! Down here, race riot. Up here, gold medal. Down here, punch a Muslim in the face. It's just not too Australian. Akmal said that the Cronulla riots show that we're relaxed, but you know what? It didn't, because the Cronulla riots happened because we were too Australian. And my favourite part of the Cronulla riots, and I know it's wrong to have a favourite bit, but I did, was on the news. I saw a guy with red hair and fair skin yelling at a guy of Middle Eastern appearance, "You don't belong on the beach!" Well, mate, you don't belong in summer. You're too Australian. You're so Australian, you've turned into a dickhead. Thank you.
You know, I think it's a long time since I've bought a flag. I didn't realise they come with Velcro now to cape up. That's brilliant. China? That would have come from China.
Yeah, they got Velcro now, so you can be racist at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, yeah.
How would you recommend wearing the flag if you just wanted to be a bit racist? Say you didn't like a cab driver and were telling a friend about it. You weren't actually starting a riot.
Yeah.
How would you suggest wearing the flag for that situation?
Well, you'd wear the cape, but like you'd do it like this, like mysteriously.
Do you think
maybe I'm racist, maybe I'm not, can't tell.
You know, like, I would love to see, like, a person dressed in a burqa made out of the Australian flag. That's ultimate multiculturalism.
Yeah. It'd be great because, you know, people that write into the Daily Telegraph and the Herald Sun wouldn't know what to be angry about. I like it, but I hate it, and I don't know why. Oh.
And even the Republicans would be angry. They're like, we've got to design a new burqa.
Will you please say Tom Gleeson? Well, you're going to mix it up after the break. From the King team, we got Denise Scott. Don't go anywhere.
People taking the mick out of our accent makes me angry. But what makes me angrier is that 42% of you bludgers did not know the wing keel was Australian. That's a disgrace. Instead of succumbing to amnesia, allow me to give you a little history lesson. The wing keel was the greatest sporting invention since Mr. and Mrs. Bradman invented the Don. It won us the America's Cup in 1983. Bob Hawke dressed up like a shocky car salesman and said we could all chuck a sickie. No one actually understood yachting. That didn't stop us partying. Australians love any sport if we're winning it. It's why we've gone mad. For taekwondo, speed skating, volleyball, weightlifting, and the Grammy Awards. But just that once. Who owns the America's Cup now? I don't know. And if it's not us, I don't bloody well care. Wake me up when we're winning. You know it makes sense. I'm Sam Kekovich.
Teams of Australians having a barney over whether or not you can be too Australian. And our next speaker is so Australian that when she's not appearing on TVs in the nation's lounge rooms, she's swiping TVs from the nation's nature strips on Hard Rubbish Day. Arguing that you can be too Australian, we have Denise Scott.
Thank you. Now, recently I performed at an AFL footy club fundraiser. As soon as I walked out onto the stage, one of the players stood up, turned around, dropped his dacks and flashed a big brown eye at me. I ask you, is that too Australian? Yes, it is. But nevertheless, it is a traditional form of greeting. Which was why I immediately turned around and flashed one back. The invention of the wine cask by Aussie chap Thomas Angrove. Was that too Australian? No, of course not. That was just bloody brilliant. I mean, why put wine in a little bottle when you can put it in a great big bloody cardboard box? However, what is too Australian is when you become so intoxicated, as happened to me once. It was just a few years ago. I was 29 years old. I was 29 years old. It was the first time I'd ever got that drunk, and I was so far gone, I was actually pouring the wine straight from the cask into my mouth, which is not a good look, especially when it's your child's first birthday. But as I said to my mother-in-law, well, it saves washing glasses. Yeah. She did not laugh. But look, back in 1984, it was so easy for me and my partner, John, to buy our own house. Sure, it was no dream home. In fact, on the for sale sign were the words, an ugly piece of crap, perfect for people with no hope of ever having a regular job. But it was our piece of crap. Sure, the roof leaked, but who cared? Not us. Our kids grew up believing it was perfectly normal to wear raincoats inside the house. And sure, we only had an outdoor toilet. Not a problem. Oh, but the way our friends would carry on. What? You've only got an outdoor toilet? Oh, my God, Scotty, what happens when you want to go in the middle of the night? Well, that's when having a bathtub comes in handy. But, Scotty, you haven't got a bathtub. All right, the hand basin. And yes, as a woman, it is tricky to climb up backwards onto a hand basin. Especially when you've got the tap in the middle going right up your arse. Ask any young person these days and they will tell you that home ownership is doomed. At least that's what they would tell you if you could ever get into those self-absorbed, lazy, little drug-addicted selfish. Oh, I'm so tired of being out clubbing all night. Young people to get off their iPhone. No, seriously, I love young people. Of course I do. I myself have adult kids. They're now in their late 20s. And that's why, when it comes to the end of the great Australian dream, sorry, it just makes me feel so sad. You know, not because it means my kids will never own a home, but because it means they're never going to move out. But now, that great Australian dream of a home with a backyard is nigh on impossible. And I'm telling yous that that makes me as mad as a gum tree full of galahs, mad as a meat axe, mad as a two-bob watch. I've had a bloody gutful. I'm spitting chips. I'm spewing. And yous, all yous with your front, just you, the opposition. I'll narrow it down. Not all of you, you know, with your, you're more front than Maya, more ass than, well, someone, I don't know, big fat ass, because we can't say who in Australia's got a big fat ass now, because it's too Australian to say what we think, because, oh, we'll get sued. It's too Australian to get passionate. It's too Australian to care about any thing except Canute and Rhonda and where their relationship is heading. And by Christ, let's hope they do it soon and put our country out of our communal sexual tension. Ladies and gentlemen, to be honest, I think we've got Buckleys of winning this showdown. Is that raw sense of honesty and humility too Australian? Yes, it is. Which means I prove beyond doubt that we can be too Australian, and therefore my work here is done. I thank you.
Scotty, do you use the brown eye as a traditional greeting for peoples that are visiting this country? Is it like when you get to Hawaii and they give you a lei?
I think it was Maori.
Yeah, and the Maoris, they rub noses. Maybe at the airport, the customs officers should flash a brown eye.
I was asked to flash a brown eye at customs once.
Yeah. Does the brown eye, does that travel as a term? Like, you know, in Northern America, it's a moon. You flash a moon.
No.
Oh,
When Lawrence travels to America, he changes his name to Lawrence Brown Eye, because otherwise it would be offensive to turn up as Lawrence Mooney.
Which is
so
my
he says, I'm Lawrence
traditional
Brown
Native
Eye.
American Indian name.
Can that be it? Do I have to stay here any longer?
Denise Scott! We're heading into the final straight. Lawrence Mooney brings it home after this.
Denise mentioned her kids, and when I think kids, I think Wiggles. They are bloody Australian legends, and 52% of you know it. They love hanging out with their mates and their dog, driving their car, and one of them gets paid to sleep in the job. So good on them. They're a lot like our cricket team. They're successful. Kids love them, and they have so many people coming and going these days. I have no idea who any of them are. You know it makes sense? I'm Sam Kekovich. Welcome back, Australia. Once again, I'd like to congratulate you on keeping lamnesia at bay. Let's keep it that way all year long by eating plenty of lamb. But for now, let's focus our attention on more trivial matters, like who's going to win this debacle. The showdown's into the final straight, and after more speakers in the current parliament, it's tighter than a mining magnate's tax return. Can you ever be too Australian? Let's find out. Me, I'm sitting on the fence till there's a winner. Then I'll say, I called it from the start. Over to these clowns.
Probably know him as the carpenter from Backyard Blitz, but you're actually confusing him with Scott Cam. But he does have one of the most well-crafted plumber's cracks in the business, arguing you can never be too Australian. Please welcome Lawrence Mooney!
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you. What is an Australian? Well, there's the quintessential Australians, the bushman, the surf lifesaver, the war hero, the sports heroes. They're the icons. And then there's the rest of us, who have never achieved anything. Just average Australians. We have the certain Australian je ne sais quoi. You see, there isn't even an Australian equivalent for je ne sais quoi. We just have that certain, I don't know what. You can't measure Australianness. It defies the laws of physics, and we might love an outlaw and a lawbreaker in this country, but even Ned Kelly obeyed the laws of physics, right up until the end. Especially at the end. Being Australian is, to quote Dennis Denudo, the lawyer from The Castle, a great Australian film about not being too Aussie. Yeah. It's a vibe thing. It's a vibe. It's a feeling we have and are free to express. But how do we express it? We express it like the first Australians, with a connection to land. It's all about spirit of place. And where do we find this place? Outside. Outside now. We play our sport here. We cook for our families on the barbecue here. We take a leak on the lemon tree here. It's outside, and it's our connection to this great landmass. Indigenous Australians called it outside too, but they used a word from their language. If they were inside and wanted to go outside. So, how do we connect to this land? Well, in the summer months, we rise early, and if it's already hot in the kitchen, we pull the blinds, strip ourselves naked, except for the essential Aussie cozzy. Hide your privates, keep it nice. Then we go outside, we lay a 20-foot piece of blue plastic on the ground. We wet it up. Don't forget the dishwashing liquid so it gets slippy. Then we let the kids slide across it. Inevitably, they shoot off the end, onto the lawn or the path just beyond it, scrape their nipples off. In an ancient initiation of our youth, once your chest is bleeding and you're saturated, you're happy, you quickly learn how to estimate distance and acceleration across this great brown land. See? The laws of physics once more. Beautiful stuff. These rituals and rites tell us we're Australian. How else are we supposed to know? Years before climate change ruined everybody's fun, we could waste water and dance underneath the sprinkler and tear our nipples on the slip and slide. And where did we do this? We did it in our yards, in our gardens, outside, in Australia. All of this great Australian tradition and law is not to be balanced and quantified because it's spirituality. And how can you ever have too much spirituality? So be as Aussie as you like. Be loud overseas if you can't quite grasp the lingo. Let your accent become one unintelligible nasal honk, if that's what you want to do. Bloody oath! Drink beer till your legs fail. Or just pop out the back and trim a hydrangea and dream about your nana's pav. Or the way her massive bosom used to crush the side of your head. You can think and do whatever you want because you're Australian. Realise your birthright. Say g'day. Be fair dinkum. Give someone a fair go. Mind your language round the Sheilas and just get stuck right into it. So go now. Go to your dreaming. Turn on the tap of your childhood and let the sprinkler of your memory saturate you and all around you with feelings of Australianness. Spray everyone you love with nostalgic glory. Today is Australia Day, but every day is Australia Day in Australia. On the slip and slide in summer, on the tennis ball going down the drain, on the barbecue sizzling proudly, on the sprinkler falling like rain. I'm sunburned, I'm zinc, I'm in the backyard making a run. You and I, we can never be too Australian. I'm sorry, can we just turn the cameras off?
Obviously, I would throw it open to questions, but there are no questions to ask after that, other than, obviously, like, you were cleared to work with children. You weren't... That's fine. Would you please thank Lawrence Mooney? Lawrence, please. And can we get a big round of applause for all of the speakers we've heard from tonight? Flanagan, Tom Gleeson and Denise Scott. Meshel Laurie, Akmal Saleh, and of course, Lawrence Mooney and the Lawrence Mooney Dancers. Sadly, that brings us to the end of our showdown. And even as I speak, a nervous nation is huddled around its TV screens, eager to find out who the winner is. Well, if that's you, I think you've missed the point. This isn't about deciding a winner. The bottom line is that none of this really matters, and that's the way Australians like it. We can have a full-on argument at the pub, have no idea what the argument's about, let alone who won the bloody argument, and still shout the other guy a drink. We can watch 5 days' worth of one match and still be excited when it ends up in a draw. Hell, we held an election 3 years ago and we still don't completely know who won. So I'm going to call this showdown a draw. There are no winners to hold a street parade for, no tall poppies to cut down. Everybody wins. Even though it's obvious that you guys obviously wiped the floor with him. But anyway, so in the true Aussie spirit, we hope you've had a completely inconclusive Australia Day. Thanks for watching and enjoy your Monday off, because that is what Australia is all about. Good night.